but it's fairly low risk as far as unforeseens, comparable to utility excavation and not knowing exactly what you may run into. When this was bid, it's above ground, easy for the contractor to see and exactly how it needs to be anchored and completed.
What I was asking specifically is that the bid is 74,000, but what we're expecting for the entire project right now for this section is 107,000. So from the text here, I didn't completely understand this, but with the inclusion of the increase of 50 working days to the project to perform these improvements and added cost for blah, 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 adds up to a total of 107. So that's sort of what I'm getting at, is if they gave us a bid for something different than the additional 50 days, then is B&B okay with 107 and saying that given the change to what they originally bid for, are they okay with saying that that's a reasonable cost for them? That make sense? Or am I missing something here?
No, I think that's a good question. We actually received bids on this prior to specifying and designing the anchoring that was required.
Okay.
And was incomplete. We had bids that were across the board and weren't consistent. There was a large gap. Huddled back up with the design team and cleaned up the specs on exactly what we wanted for installation on the basalt fascia rock.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very tight in that context, if that makes sense. So I fully anticipate that B&B will stay within the numbers that have been provided.
And if I might, part of that difference between B&B's bid and the 107 is work that's being done not by B&B, but by Cunningham?
Kaufman.
Kaufman. For instance, they're doing significant excavation to get access for the mason to do their work. So that's a big piece of the difference.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about that. Shouldn't we have a separate contract then for Kaufman? Or are the funds being funneled through B&B to Kaufman?
We have a current contract with Kaufman, with them being the general contractor on the project.
Okay.
Any sub work that's done on the project goes through Kaufman. That's typically how the contract's set up between the city of Washougal and the general contractor on any municipal project.
Okay. Councilmember Delavar, are you actually concerned that the other three masonry and stonework companies would come in with different bids if they were aware of the changes? Is
Well,
that
what I
you
was concerned about is, I mean, that is a valid concern, yes. But the thing that concerned me the most is I just didn't know if we were asking them to do more work than what they said they could do at that price, whether that is a realistic number for them. And of course, the other contractors may have been able to answer that differently. And so that's just an unknown thing. But if the rest of the additional cost for this section is being borne by Kaufman, then that's sort of a different equation there.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, when we did huddle back up with the four contractors, subcontractors that bid the work for Kaufman, we did walk the project, updated the drawings, cleaned it up to make sure
So
that the numbers were tight.
Stoneworks and masonry companies were brought up to speed and given an opportunity to rebid.
All four were given the specific drawings to bid,
Okay.
and we walked through with each each contractor on exactly what the expectations were.
Two questions, if I may. I didn't quite understand your explanation of the funding on this, so I'll ask you a yes or no question on that, if I may. Is this stimulus money?
Yes, there is a portion that's stimulus. It's $594,366.
How much of the 107,000 is stimulus?
Stimulus has already been spent towards the construction of the project. There was specific requirements with accepting the
Okay.
Relief Act money to be spent first on the project.
And the rest of it's coming from the impact fees?
Is coming from the Safety Lou funding, which is a safe, accountable, flexible, efficient transportation equity act program. I actually pulled that up today.
Can you say
Thought
that
that question
one more
might come my
time?
way. And then the pedestrian bike grant, obviously with the at-grade crossing, eliminating the at-grade crossing and having the pedestrian tunnel, a very marketable project for grant receipt.
Thank you. Second question, if I may. Yes or no type question. This work is decorative?
Yes, the basalt fascia rock is decorative. Right now, structurally, with the wing walls and tunnel sections, it meets all DOT specs. This is decorative.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? Question for me, Trevor, on the 50 days. So that pushes out from the time that, Where does that put us?
Kaufman was required to complete the project or reach substantial completion. So it pushes the project out until essentially the early May.
Okay.
Obviously, the 50 is ample time to get that
Got some
work,
fluff in there.
work done in speaking to the subcontractor.
okay,
Now, that's weather dependent with the basalt fascia rock and some of the mortar for construction. If the weather does lighten up, they don't have to put insulated blankets out and some of the other contingencies. So some of it is weather dependent. That's built into the 50 days as well.
thank you. Any other questions? Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Evers, Agenda Bill 39-10.
Thank you, Mayor Guard, Council. We've been working with the Department of Commerce, Washington State Department of Commerce, as well as the Federal Department of Energy on the Energy Efficiency Block Grant. In speaking to their representative, Patty Miller Crowley, she had requested that we get the signature block for Mayor Guard, City Clerk, and 2 council members prior to the contract with Commerce, as well as our interlocal agreement with the other partners in this grant, which happens to be the City of Battleground, as well as the City of Camas and CPU. And since March 2010 is a 5-Monday month, as the next meeting for council does not fall until April, which would hold up the contract process for the interlocal agreement for about another month. Staff is submitted for consideration for tonight's meeting. The recommended action this evening is to authorize the mayor to sign the signature authorization provided by Department of Commerce as the individual authorized to sign contracts, loan agreements, and amendments. Authorize R.J. Stevenson to sign invoice vouchers requesting commerce funds, and that 2 council members be chosen to sign as authorizing authorities that permitted the mayor and Mr. Stevenson to take these actions. And just to clarify, there is no contract currently between the Department of Commerce and the City of Washougal or any of the other partners. This is ahead of the contract being executed. The other piece of the grant with the energy efficiency is executing a interlocal agreement with the City of Camas, City of Battleground, as well as Clark Public Utilities.
So move.
Second. I've got a motion and a second. Council discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.